is. It's okay. The reason I want to mention something here. I was discussing like with Vision and also some of the people who've envisioned the program. If you feel that this was too much, too strong altogether, it's by design. And here's the thing, it's the whole programming of AI Summit is envisioned in a way that by the end of the summit, even if you have no experience, you'll be able to you'll be inspired by lots of new ideas, and you will be able to create your own app in 20 minutes. That's what you will leave with. So I want to seed that idea here so you guys get it. So if it's too much information to process, good. Sit with that. We good? Yes? Okay, give your partner a high five to wake them up a little bit. Yes, some partners need more high fives. Fine. Every time we switch sessions, there's, the difference between information and transformation is, I don't know if you remember, Vision said, critical thinking and rate of application. These two aspects are extremely important. So every time we change sessions, it's fine. Kids, quiet. Thank you. Every time we switch sessions, you have a breather, and it's an opportunity. I would invite you to think about what is the one thing you will apply in the next 4 weeks, which is connected to your business, your vision. Okay? And before we shift gears, and we'll have Iman Obu and Naveen Jain talking about transformational ideas connected to using AI to transform your businesses. But it's important before we go there to talk about legalities. Oh my God. Hey. Okay. Who here loves dealing with the legal teams of other companies? Okay, we got to call the police. I was expecting 0 hands. Okay, except for the lawyers. Everybody else should not raise their hands. Okay, so we're going to have a 20-minute session to be mindful, because this is such an unknown territory, to be mindful of the legal implication of the things that you will be rolling out. And we have the head of legal counsel of Mind Valley live from Arizona doing a 20-minute session so that you can envision how to roll out things and think consciously about the legal implications of them. And she's live joining us from Arizona. Okay, it's going to be a 20-minute session here. You guys ready? Yeah? You guys ready? Back home? Good. All right, can we queue up Jasmine, please? She's live. As soon as you see her on the screen, you go nuts. Back home too, you go nuts in your living room. Your parents will think you're crazy. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, can we have Jasmine? While that is happening.
Hello.
Oh, there she is. Give her a huge round of applause.
Hello, AI Summit. Okay. I am Jasmine Tyrone. I am the VP of Legal for Mind Valley. I wish I could be there with you all in person today, but I am over in the US. I'm located in Arizona. And I was actually there last week for MVU though, and had a great time. So I wish I could still be there with you all. I know you've already had some wonderful talks today and you have more exciting topics to come, but mine is not as exciting, but also incredibly important. So with that said, we're going to talk about the legalities of AI. And somebody over there is going to have to bring up my presentation and I'm going to have to tell them when to go to the next page. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I have my presentation up here too for me to follow. So AI is not new, but AI is what we are talking about today with ChatGPT. Caught us incredibly quickly. And it kind of upended and changed the landscape of how we work and live. So I know I have recently started referring to ChatGPT as my coworker, and it has definitely helped me be able to do my job better and more quickly. And I found this chart fascinating as it shows just how quickly it took off. Oh, people, I think, are saying that they can't see the presentation. So I'm not sure if there's a way to get it online for everybody. I'll keep talking though while that's figured out. So this chart is fascinating because it shows that it took only 2 months for ChatGPT to reach 200 or 100 million users, which is incredible. So Instagram took 30 months. TikTok took 9 months. And like I said, ChatGPT only 2 months. So the reason why I am showing you this is that I want you to fully appreciate the speed. And people are still saying that they can't see it. So just letting you all know that. So 2 months for 100 million people for those people that can't see this chart. So let me tell you, nothing in the regulatory and legal world moves this quickly, which is why I am talking to you today. So let me see. If people still can't see, I don't know if I should be able to put it up on my screen too. I know you guys said you were going to control it for me. Okay, I think people can see now. Okay, so just because people couldn't see, so here's the one that I mentioned about the digital speed. Oh, okay. AI growth. So I had mentioned that it generally takes a while for legislation to catch up to what's going on in the world. So this is a US based chart, but I have seen charts for other countries as well, and it's all trending the same. This chart shows the mentions of AI and machine learning from 2011 to 2020. And like I said, AI isn't new. That's why you see that these bills have been around for a while. But as AI, as of what we know today, is newer, and I expect to see this skyrocket. So between 2021 and 2022, there's been an 46% increase in AI bills. So it's even continued to go up. And I imagine that in 2023, it has exponentially expanded. So a lot of the bills can be categorized into predictive technology, consumer rights, employment, insurance, and healthcare. And a lot of those at the cusp of it would be privacy concerns and issues. And so the legal and regulatory framework has not cut up here. And so you just have to keep in mind that when you're using these technologies, it might be subject to change based on regulations. We may have to adapt and pivot and navigate. And I expect more clarity really in the next couple of years as we see the litigation come in and the regulatory framework built out. But I think we can already see trends forming that will help you and guide you in what to think about and how to think about it, and to remind you that there are frameworks in place already that we need to remember. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so here is just an overview of 5 big potential legal issues. So copyright infringement and issues, trademark infringement, defamation, privacy and data protection, and ethical implications. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of these, and then I'm going to focus on a few of the bigger hot topics that I think are in line with a lot of the other presentations that we are talking about today. So copyright infringement. AI learns what you input into it. So copyrighted material is input, and then it might also be output. So a copyright means someone owns it and they are the only ones that can reproduce it. But when it comes out, you might not realize that. So that's something you always have to be aware of what output you are getting. Trademark infringement, again, AI learns what's input into it. So a trademark may be a name or a service mark owned by someone. So let's say you're trying to create a new logo. AI doesn't necessarily respect a trademark. They don't know. And so there's a chance what AI creates for you is similar to what's out there already. So let's say you want to create a new mark and you say, I want it to be a check mark, but with some pizzazz. Well, there's nothing that won't make it come back with like a Nike checkbox. So the Nike swoosh. And so you just have to keep in mind that everything you get, you need to check for these infringement issues. Another one that's come up is defamation. So we've all heard the stories of AI creating fake news and citing fake sources. And if you go and publish that and distribute that content that's misleading and false, then you might end up in the middle of a defamation case. So there's actually one right now that was just filed in June where a radio host realized that AI was telling people, if you input his name, that he had embezzled funds from a nonprofit company. And it was completely false. There was no truth to it at all. And so he is now suing because he's pretty mad about what it potentially does to his reputation. Another big one is privacy and data protection. So this is a big concern of mine. And I would also say it's a very big concern of all the legislators out there. So when you want to write a work email better or analyze a resume, you might be inputting information on someone without realizing that you might be breaking privacy laws. So remember that most companies and people are subject to some sort of privacy laws if they're handling private information. So it's GDPR in Europe and the UK, and in the US, there's quite a few. So there's the California Consumer Privacy Act, and then there's also some that are industry specific, like, you know, the healthcare has HIPAA, and then there's some for the financial industry as well. So let's see. And then the last one is ethical implications. So this one is interesting. And obviously there can be all sorts of ethical implications, but I'm just going to focus more on from an employment and hiring bias standpoint. So AI is only as good as the information input. So AI systems can potentially perpetuate bias. And it's something that you need to keep in mind if you're using it to analyze people. Okay, next slide. So copyright issues. So this is such an interesting area, and there are copyright concerns when thinking about how AI systems are learned, so the input of it, and then also the output of it. What you receive might also have copyright implications. And then on top of that, if you create something in AI, there's always the question of, are you able to copyright it? If you put your time and effort into making something, but used AI as well, are you able to copyright that? Okay, next slide. Okay, so aren't these monkeys cute? The big question that has come up with AI is how much human contribution is needed in order to own a copyright? And this actually, obviously the AI stuff is a little newer, but before all of these AI questions came about, a monkey was actually paving the way in some areas that can answer some of today's AI questions. So I wanted to start with this. So these cute little monkey selfies are not copyrighted. That is why they are allowed to be on my attorney presentation. So why are they not copyrighted? Because a non-human cannot own a copyright. So this was an actual court case, and that was established. So these monkeys could not own the copyright. So what does that mean here in today's landscape? That non-humans cannot own a copyright. So AI machines cannot own a copyright. And this is for the US, but it's also pretty broad throughout the whole world. Everybody's pretty much on the same page here. There has been a couple exceptions, like South Africa's laws are a little bit different. And then, you know, some places in Asia, I think it's Japan and China, it's up for debate a little bit as to what they're going to do. So additionally, a human was behind these monkey selfies. So could the human own the copyright because they meet the human element requirement? And you see, his argument was he had to establish himself in the monkey tribe. He had to be with them for 14 hours a day. He set up the camera. He made sure the lighting was good. And he said it was his placement and his eye that led to these selfies. So as I said at the beginning, though, these selfies were not copyrighted. So what does that mean? The human element was not enough. And so the question remains, how much human contribution is needed? And I know this is probably where you guys are all waiting for me to give you an answer that you can take away. And the best answer I can give you is, I don't know, because it's not established. And so my advice to you all is to document what your human elements are. And this is why you also really need to think about how you're using AI. Okay, next slide. So bringing it to today's landscape, this is a super interesting case, and it's the same question of how much human contribution is needed. So Zarya of the Dawn is a book with all images created by Midjourney. So there's an example of that photo right there. You can also guess this isn't copyrighted because an attorney's using it on her slides. So Zaria of the Dawn was formally submitted to the US copyright registration, and it was granted. And it was granted for two things. Number one, for the entire work, meaning the book. So that's the layout, the text, and the images all together. And then the second was the images themselves. So someone let the office in on the news that the images were created by Midjourney, and the office actually came back to cancel the registration unless human authorship was shown, which they could not show because they were completely made by Midjourney. So in the end, the protection of the images was revoked. They said you cannot copyright images. There was no human element to it. But here's the interesting part. The entire work, so the layout of the text and the images themselves, were fine, and they stayed copyrighted. And so you can probably guess why, because it was a human who made the layout of the text and the images and the book itself. Okay, so next slide. So the US Copyright Office actually came out afterwards with a couple statements that I think are incredibly helpful. And they said, when an AI technology determines the expressive elements of its output, the generated material is not the product of human authorships. They also said, applicants have a duty to disclose the inclusion of AI generated content in a work submitted for registration and provide a brief explanation of the human author's contributions to the work. So my overall tip here is document the human element. That is the key to being able to get a copyright on it. I think of AI as another tool in the toolbox, right? Even though the AI technology is new, think about it in past ways too. You know, you would do research with books or, you know, different articles to create things. So AI is just another tool, but there has to be that human element attached to it. Okay, next slide. Heart on My Sleeve. So this was actually a popular song for a couple weeks in April. And on April 4th, there was a song with AI generated vocals to sound like Drake and The Weeknd that came out. By April 17th, it was taken down because Universal Music Group was successful in getting it taken down, claiming copyright infringement. So this actually doesn't give us a lot of answers because they got it off on a technicality because they said that there was a line in the song that was copyrighted. And so that's the reason why it was taken down. It actually had nothing to do with the AI generated vocals. So that still hasn't been decided. And I think that that's an interesting thing to think about with what the Beatles are now doing, or Paul McCartney came out to say that they are going to release a final song using AI and that they extricated John Lennon's voice. I don't know how this will play out. There's so many potential issues, and I think it will be interesting to follow. So the first thing is the extrication of the voice. You can imagine right now people are trying to protect their voices. So singers, actors, actresses, I think we'll see legislation and some regulation around this, but the regs haven't caught up. So this could be an issue unless, let's say, hypothetically, everybody signed off on this. Nobody had a problem with, you know, John Lennon's voice being extricated. So then the next question would become, is it a copyright issue because they used AI to create it? So I don't know if there will be an issue or not, but I think it's going to be interesting to follow because I can definitely see people trying to use this song, let's say in their advertisements, and saying, well, you know, it's not copyrighted because they used AI. And so we can use it. They can't claim the song as theirs. And so that could be a potential court case that could make a difference and kind of show us where we are going in this, you know, world. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so I have kind of focused so far on output, but there's also a whole other element of everything that has been input into the AI systems for training. And there's actually some lawsuits happening right now that I think will also give, some clarity at some point, but they haven't gone through the system yet. So one of the big ones is there's a case against Stability AI, Midjourney, and DeviantArt. So this is a class action filed by a class of visual artists, and they allege that companies used artwork without permission to train AI algorithms. Then there's another case by Getty against Stability AI. They allege that Stability AI copied 12 million images to train its AI model without permission or compensation. And it's very interesting because Getty has actually licensed its images for AI training for other sources. And I also just wanted to show the difference between the Getty images that I thought was interesting. So the left picture is the original photo, and the right is what AI came out with. So they still have a little work to do on some of these pictures. All right, next slide. Privacy issues. So the next big topic is privacy issues, and this too can be looked at in so many ways. So the overview is to remember that you probably are subject to privacy laws, and just because ChatGPT or others makes it easy to input information does not mean that your duty is out the door. In the EU and the UK, you have GDPR. In the US, you have a whole bunch of state privacy laws. You have industry-specific laws, and you can really think of this in two ways. What are you inputting and what is being output? So some companies have already taken a stance on this. So JP Morgan banned some of the use of ChatGPT. And then Amazon and some other companies like Verizon have made strong policies here on what employees can input because of all of these privacy issues and concerns. Okay, next slide. So AI and privacy. So here's just kind of some thought-provoking questions. So input concerns. What are you inputting? Is there consent or another justification? And that goes back to the privacy laws. Can the personal information be used in a way consistent with privacy rights? The output concerns. So is AI being used in a way that raises privacy concerns? Is it being used to make decisions that impact privacy? And do people understand how the technology is used and how it might impact them? So this is a big thing, and it hasn't been settled. Italy actually banned ChatGPT for a while, and it was because of privacy. They wanted it to be more transparent. They felt it unlawfully collected personal information, and there was no age verification. So essentially, kids could get inappropriate material. The US Federal Trade Commission just sent a 20-page letter to OpenAI this week asking about how AI is trained and how personal data is treated. And I expect this to be a very big area. One of the investigations is into whether OpenAI engaged in unfair or deceptive privacy practices to get information. So it shows that scrutiny here is coming. And even OpenAI leaders have said that it needs to be regulated. So I think this is going to be a super interesting area to follow. Like I said, though, there is a privacy framework already in place. So don't forget that and know the laws that you have to follow. Okay, next slide. Ethical implications. So super interesting area as well. I'm going to speak about the ethical implications of AI, especially in hiring. So AI is trained off of input information. And what if that information is biased? What if algorithms become biased because of what it has learned? For as good as AI is, it might not understand some of the nuances of data it receives. It just analyzes it. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so here it shows how we can get to biased output. So there's human bias, there's data bias, and there's algorithm bias. So there are AI softwares out there now that are analyzing resumes and maybe helping choose where you advertise for jobs, et cetera. And keep in mind that AI is trained off of input information. So if humans have a bias, that bias is now going into AI. And if the data set is incomplete, which is a huge issue sometimes, it doesn't represent the general population and you will get a biased output. And then the whole algorithm will be biased. And AI can do this on a large scale, which is kind of what the scary part is, right? So here's an example of a data bias that led to an algorithm bias. So it was actually Amazon used AI to automate its recruiting process by rating applicant resumes based on past and current employees. So they used data from the last 10 years. When looking up the input data, it turns out that the majority of applicants and hired employees were male. So then AI decided male candidates were preferred. But one of the things is that it's just been proven that there are more males and less females in science and technology and engineering and math. And so it's not that females were not wanted, it was that there were just less applicants, and that's why the numbers kind of look skewed. But the algorithm kind of changed the reasoning of why it was a skewed number. And then they also started picking up on words that were used more often in men's resumes than women's. So they started saying, giving more points for words like executed or captured. And it actually penalized resumes that included the word woman. So if you were part of the women's rugby team and you had put that on your resume, you actually got dinged for that. So they actually did away with this, obviously, because of the bias. But I think it shows how, AI can be so amazing. And I think in some ways, if you use correctly, it can actually get rid of some bias. But the information input is based off of what we put in there. And so we have to account for the biases. Okay. That is all I have for that one. So next slide. Okay, so AI tips and solutions. Like I said, you guys probably came here hoping for a lot more answers that I can give you. And I think one of the interesting things is that we will start to see answers come about in regulations and, legal changes and legal cases going through the systems. And so this is an area that, I feel like every day I'm sent a new article or I see something new about things that are changing, in the US and throughout the world and in different places who are trying to now navigate this system that has happened so quickly. So here's just a few tips and solutions. And next slide, please. So when thinking about how to use AI, always consider confidentiality and privacy. Consider protectability of the output. So like I said, human authorship is still required. Beware that output may infringe. Check accuracy of outputs. Make outputs your own. Always have at least one substantial human inventor. And realize there is no current ruling on mixed inventorship. So document the human inventor side. And that is all I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Beautiful lady. Whoa. Oh, disappeared very fast. Okay. For the people watching at home, right, take 60 seconds. Again, thinking about the insights that you would like to apply in the next 4 weeks. And I dare you to be outrageous. And for people here, we do a quick reset again. Would you mind standing up, please?